Hello guys, welcome to Potter Paradox. So in this video, we will see what if Harry rejected the Weasleys and courted Daphne Greengrass. Slytherin politics. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Sorting Hat's Warning. Harry Potter pressed his forehead against the cool glass of the Hogwarts Express window, watching London fade into countryside. His mind raced with possibilities. A wizard. He was actually a wizard going to a magic school. After 10 miserable years with the Dursleys, everything was about to change. The compartment door slid open with a sharp clack. Harry turned, expecting to see the red-headed boy who'd helped him with his trunk earlier, but instead faced a girl with long blonde hair and startlingly blue eyes. She stood in the doorway with perfect posture, her robes already on and immaculate. "Is this compartment available?" she asked, her voice carrying a crisp, confident tone Harry hadn't heard from kids his age before. The others are filled with people who don't understand the concept of indoor voices. Sure, Harry said, gesturing to the empty seats. "Just me in here." The girl nodded and took a seat across from him, placing a leather-bound book on her lap. She studied him for a moment, her gaze lingering on his forehead. "You're Harry Potter," she stated matter-of-factly. Harry's hand instinctively moved to his scar. "Yeah, that's me. Though I didn't know it was such a big deal until recently." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Didn't know? That's unexpected." She extended her hand. "Daphne Greengrass. Pleasure to make your acquaintance." Harry shook her hand, noticing how different this introduction felt from his earlier meeting with Ron Weasley. No wide-eyed staring, no excited babbling about his scar. Just a straightforward greeting. "So you're just finding out about being famous?" Daphne asked, genuine curiosity breaking through her composed facade. "Finding out about being a wizard at all, actually," Harry admitted. "I grew up with Muggle relatives. They never told me anything about magic or my parents or, well, any of it." Daphne's eyes widened. "You were raised by Muggles. But you're Harry Potter. She stopped herself, straightening her already perfect posture. "That's highly unusual for someone of your status." "My status?" "The Potters are an old family. Not Sacred 28, but respected purebloods with significant political standing and wealth. For the heir to be raised without knowledge of his heritage is peculiar." Before Harry could ask what Sacred 28 meant, the compartment door slid open again. Ron Weasley stood there, already munching on a chocolate frog. "There you are, Harry. Been looking all over." His smile faltered when he spotted Daphne. "Oh. Didn't realize you had company." Daphne's expression cooled noticeably. "Weasley. Greengrass," Ron replied with equal frost. He turned to Harry. "Come on, mate. There's a compartment down the way with some of the other first years. Much better company." Harry frowned at the obvious slight. "I'm fine here, thanks. Daphne and I were just talking." Ron's ears reddened. "Suit yourself. Just watch out. Some wizarding families are better than others, you know. Wouldn't want to make friends with the wrong sort." He shot Daphne a meaningful look before sliding the door shut with more force than necessary. "What was that about?" Harry asked, turning back to Daphne. She sighed. "Politics, Potter. The wizarding world runs on them. The Weasleys and my family don't exactly see eye to eye. Because of that Sacred 28 thing you mentioned?" "Partly. The Sacred 28 are the oldest, purely magical families in Britain. My family is among them. The Weasleys are too, actually, but they're known as blood traders." "Blood traders? That sounds awful." "It's just a term for purebloods who actively reject traditional wizarding culture in favor of Muggle ways," Daphne explained. The Weasleys are firmly aligned with Dumbledore and his progressive faction. Harry's head swam with the unfamiliar terminology. And your family? Neutral, Daphne said with a hint of pride. The Greengrasses maintain diplomatic relations with both traditional and progressive families. Father says picking sides limits opportunities. She studied Harry again. You really don't know any of this, do you? Harry shook his head. The first wizard I met was Hagrid, just a month ago. The groundskeeper. Daphne couldn't hide her surprise. That's who they sent to introduce Harry Potter to the wizarding world. He was brilliant, Harry defended. Rescued me from my relatives, took me shopping for school supplies. I'm sure he was kind, but... Daphne hesitated. Didn't anyone explain your family history? Your Wisengamot seat? The Potter vaults? Harry stared blankly. I see. Daphne's expression became unreadable. That's interesting. The train journey continued with Daphne giving Harry a crash course on wizarding politics. By the time the Hogwarts Express pulled into Hogsmeade Station, Harry's head buzzed with new information and questions. As they disembarked, Daphne paused. Potter. Harry. A word of advice. Don't let anyone tell you who you should be. Everyone will have expectations for the boy who lived. Figure out what you want first. With that cryptic statement, she disappeared into the crowd of black-robed first-years gathering around Hagrid's towering form. Potter, Harry. The great hall fell silent as Harry stepped forward, his legs wooden with nervousness. Hundreds of faces stared at him from the 4 long tables. At the Gryffindor table, Ron Weasley gave him an encouraging thumbs up, while his older brother Percy nodded pompously. Harry spotted Daphne at the Slytherin table, her expression neutral but attentive. Professor McGonagall placed the ancient sorting hat on his head, and it slipped down over his eyes, plunging him into darkness. Said a small voice in his ear. Difficult. Very difficult. Plenty of courage, I see. Not a bad mind either. There's talent, oh my goodness, yes, and a nice thirst to prove yourself. But where to put you? Harry gripped the edges of the stool, thinking, not Slytherin, not Slytherin. Not Slytherin, said the small voice. Are you certain? You could be great, you know, it's all here in your head, and Slytherin would help you on the way to greatness, no doubt about that. Please, not Slytherin, Harry thought desperately, remembering what he'd heard about the house's dark reputation. The hat seemed to sigh. Before I decide, Mr. Potter, I must warn you. I see paths being laid before you by others. Manipulations. Expectations. Plans made for your life without your knowledge or consent. Harry's breath caught. What do you mean? Who's manipulating me? I cannot say specifically, I am bound by magic to keep student secrets. But know this, those who claim to guide you may have their own agenda. Those who befriend you may report to others. Trust, but verify. Look beneath the surface. Are you saying Ron, I say nothing specific, young Potter. Only that Slytherin's cunning might serve you well in detecting deception. However, if you're certain. Harry hesitated. What the hat said aligned with Daphne's warnings on the train. But surely the Weasleys had been nothing but kind. Ron seemed genuinely friendly, if a bit prejudiced against Slytherins. And yet. Before Harry could reconsider, the hat shouted, Gryffindor. The Gryffindor table erupted in cheers. The Weasley twins chanted, We got Potter. We got Potter, as Harry removed the hat and walked shakily to his new house table. As he sat down, Percy Weasley pumped his hand vigorously. Excellent, Harry. Knew you'd be with us. Dumbledore himself was in Gryffindor, you know. Harry smiled weakly, his mind spinning with the hat's warning. Across the hall, he caught Daphne's eye. She gave him a small, almost imperceptible nod before turning her attention to Zabini, Blaise, who was being sorted into Slytherin. Harry's first week at Hogwarts passed in a blur of moving staircases, getting lost, and trying to keep up with classes. Ron had attached himself to Harry's side, constantly steering him away from Slytherin students and toward his brothers whenever possible. Friday morning brought double potions with the Slytherins. As the Gryffindors lined up outside the dungeon classroom, Harry spotted Daphne standing with a dark-skinned boy he recognized as Blaise Zabini. He raised his hand in greeting. Ron tugged his arm down. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Just being friendly," Harry replied, annoyed at Ron's overreaction. "To Slytherins? They're all dark wizards in training, mate. That's ridiculous. You can't judge everyone by their house." Ron scoffed. "Watch me. My dad says." The dungeon door swung open, cutting off their argument as Professor Snape ushered them inside with a sneer. The potions classroom was chilly and dim, lined with jars containing floating, preserved specimens that Harry preferred not to examine too closely. Snape started class by taking roll, pausing dramatically at Harry's name. "Ah, yes," he said softly, "Harry Potter. Our new celebrity." Draco Malfoy and his friends sniggered behind their hands. Snape finished calling names and fixed the class with his cold, black eyes. "You are here to learn the subtle science and exact art of potion making," he began, speaking barely above a whisper yet commanding complete silence. "I don't expect you will really understand the beauty of the softly simmering cauldron with its shimmering fumes, the delicate power of liquids that creep through human veins, bewitching the mind, and snaring the senses. I can teach you how to bottle fame, brew glory, even stopper death, if you aren't as big a bunch of dunderheads as I usually have to teach." Snape suddenly rounded on Harry. "Potter. What would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?" Harry blinked. Hermione Granger's hand shot into the air beside him, but Snape ignored her. "I don't know, sir," Harry admitted. Snape's lips curled into a sneer. "Fame clearly isn't everything." From the corner of his eye, Harry saw Daphne subtly tap her notebook, where she'd written something. When Snape turned to write on the blackboard, Harry squinted to read her note, "Draft of living death." "Let's try again," Snape said, turning back. "Potter, where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar?" Hermione stretched her hand higher. Daphne's quill moved quickly across her page. This time, Harry caught her note clearly, "Stomach of a goat." "In the stomach of a goat, sir," Harry answered. Snape's eyes narrowed dangerously. "And what, pray tell, does a bezoar do?" Daphne's quill scratched again. "It's an antidote to most poisons, sir," Harry said, gaining confidence. The potions master's face darkened. "Who's helping you, Potter?" 5 points from Gryffindor for cheating. Harry opened his mouth to protest, but Daphne spoke first. "Professor, I was simply taking notes on your fascinating questions. If Potter happened to glance at my parchment, perhaps he has better eyesight than we give him credit for." Her tone was respectful but carried a hint of challenge. Several students gasped at her boldness. Snape stared at Daphne for a long moment, then surprisingly, his expression softened fractionally. "Miss Greengrass. Your father would be disappointed to see you aiding Gryffindors. My father taught me that knowledge benefits from sharing, Professor. House rivalries shouldn't impede education." Snape's mouth twitched. 2 points to Slytherin for quick thinking, Miss Greengrass. "And Potter," he turned back to Harry, "a point to Gryffindor for having the sense to recognize valuable information when presented with it. Unlike most of your housemates." The class stared in shock. Snape granting any points to Gryffindor seemed unprecedented. "Now pair up for today's assignment, a simple potion to cure boils. Instructions on the board." Ron immediately moved toward Harry, but Snape intercepted. "I think not, Mr. Weasley. Potter, work with Miss Greengrass. Perhaps her competence will rub off." Harry gathered his things and moved to Daphne's table, ignoring Ron's betrayed look. "Thanks for the help," Harry whispered as they set up their cauldron. "Consider it repayment for standing up to Weasley outside," Daphne replied quietly. I heard what you said about not judging by houses. Rare thinking for a Gryffindor. The Sorting Hat almost put me in Slytherin, Harry admitted, then froze, surprised he'd revealed something so personal. Daphne paused in crushing snake fangs. Did it? Interesting. What changed its mind? I asked it not to. After what I'd heard about Slytherin. You mean after what the Weasleys told you, Daphne corrected, measuring dried nettles with precision. Add the fangs now, slowly. As they worked, Daphne guided Harry through the potion steps with clear, concise instructions. By the end of class, they had produced a perfect cure for boils, earning another rare point for Gryffindor and 3 for Slytherin. As they packed up, Daphne slipped a folded note into Harry's textbook. Read this later. Alone. That evening in the Gryffindor common room, Harry finally had a chance to read Daphne's note. He waited until Ron was engaged in a loud chess match with Seamus before unfolding the parchment. Potter, you helped yourself today by accepting information from an unexpected source. The wizarding world isn't as simple as light versus dark, Gryffindor versus Slytherin. If you're interested in learning more about navigating these waters, meet me in the library tomorrow at 4 p.m., History section, back table. Also, watch who you trust with your words. Some people report everything to their superiors. DG Harry frowned, reading the last line twice. The Sorting Hat had warned him of something similar. His eyes drifted to where Ron sat across the room, laughing as his knight demolished Seamus's bishop. Just then, Percy Weasley approached Ron, leaning down to whisper something. Ron nodded, glanced at Harry, then followed his brother to a quiet corner. Their heads bent together in intense conversation, with Percy occasionally making notes on a small pad. Were they talking about him? Harry casually moved closer, pretending to search for something in his bag while straining to hear their hushed voices. Seems to be adjusting well, Percy was saying. Though he partnered with the Greengrass girl in potions today. Not my fault, Ron defended. Snape forced them together. Still, we need to keep him firmly in our circle. The headmaster was very clear about this, Ronald. I'm trying. But he's stubborn. Defended the snakes earlier today. Percy sighed. Just keep him away from Slytherin influence. Report any unusual behavior directly to me, and I'll pass it along. Remember what's at stake for our family. Harry retreated quietly, heart pounding. The headmaster. Dumbledore was having him watched. And the Weasleys were reporting on him. His mind raced back to King's Cross Station. Mrs. Weasley, shouting about muggles and platform 9 3/4 in a station full of muggles. Ron, coincidentally, unable to find a seat except in Harry's compartment. The twins, making a big show of recognizing him. Had it all been staged? Was his friendship with Ron arranged by Dumbledore? Harry looked down at Daphne's note again. His decision was made. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., he would be in the library. The following afternoon, Harry slipped away from Ron by claiming he needed to see Madame Pomfrey about a headache. He hurried to the library, finding the history section nearly deserted except for a few upper-year Ravenclaws. Daphne sat at the back table, a neat stack of books beside her. She looked up as he approached, a hint of surprise in her eyes. You came. I wasn't entirely sure you would. Harry slid into the chair across from her. I overheard something last night that convinced me I should. He recounted the conversation between Percy and Ron. Daphne listened without interrupting, her expression growing increasingly troubled. That confirms my suspicions, she said when he finished. The Weasleys have always been Dumbledore's strongest supporters. Their sudden interest in you seemed convenient. But why? Why would Dumbledore want me watched? Think about it, Potter. You're not just any wizard. You're a symbol, a potential political force. The boy who lived. Whoever controls your image and influences your thinking has significant power. She leaned forward. And you mentioned the Sorting Hat almost put you in Slytherin. Imagine how that would upset certain people's plans. Harry frowned. So you think Dumbledore planted the Weasleys to, what? Keep me away from Slytherin influence? Among other things, possibly. Daphne opened one of her books. The Potter family historically maintained neutrality in wizarding politics, like my family. Your father broke the tradition by aligning firmly with Dumbledore during the war. Perhaps the headmaster wants to ensure you follow that path. By manipulating me and having me spied on. Harry's voice rose slightly, earning a sharp shoo from Madame Pants. Politics is rarely straightforward, Daphne whispered. Look, I'm not saying cut ties completely. Just, be aware. Question things. Form your own opinions. Harry nodded slowly. That's what the Sorting Hat told me too. Their conversation shifted to classwork, with Daphne offering insights on wizarding culture between discussions of transfiguration theory. Harry found himself relaxing in her company. Unlike Ron, who constantly wanted to talk about Quidditch or complain about homework, Daphne listened to his questions and answered thoughtfully. As they left the library later, Harry asked, "Why are you helping me? Won't this cause problems with your housemates?" Daphne considered before answering. My father always says extraordinary times create unexpected alliances. Besides, a small smile played at her lips, not everyone in Slytherin worships Malfoy's opinions. Some of us think for ourselves. The following Thursday brought flying lessons with the Slytherins. As the Gryffindors made their way to the training grounds, Ron continued his campaign against Harry's growing friendship with Daphne. She's using you, mate. Slytherins always have angles. Maybe, Harry conceded, but at least she's upfront about it. Not pretending to be my friend while reporting to Percy. Ron's face reddened. I don't know what you think you heard, save it. Harry quickened his pace, leaving Ron sputtering behind him. On the training grounds, 2 rows of brooms lay on the grass. The Slytherins were already there, including Draco Malfoy, who was loudly boasting about his flying prowess. Nearly crashed into a Muggle helicopter once. Should have seen my dive, fascinating, Draco, Daphne cut in smoothly, though one wonders why you were flying in Muggle airspace at all. Quite the breach of the statute of secrecy. Several Slytherins snickered as Malfoy's pale cheeks colored. Careful, Greengrass, he hissed. Your family's neutrality only protects you so far. Is that a threat, Malfoy? Harry asked, stepping forward. The blonde boy smirked. Look, Potter's defending his Slytherin girlfriend. Choosing snakes over your own house now. I choose friends based on character, not house colors, Harry replied coolly. Maybe try developing some character and see how that works out for you. Several students from both houses laughed. Even Blaise Zabini covered a smile. Before Malfoy could retort, Madame Hooch arrived and instructed everyone to stand by a broomstick. Harry ended up between Daphne and Hermione Granger, with Malfoy directly opposite him. Stick out your right hand over your broom and say, up. Hooch instructed. Up, everyone shouted. Harry's broom jumped instantly into his hand. Daphne's rose smoothly a second later. Hermione's merely rolled over, while Ron smacked him in the face, causing another round of laughter. As Madame Hooch corrected their grips, Malfoy grew increasingly irritated, especially when the instructor told him he'd been holding his broom wrong for years. When I blow my whistle, kick off from the ground, hover for a moment, then lean forward slightly and touch back down, Hooch explained. But before she could blow her whistle, Neville Longbottom, nervous and jumpy, pushed off too soon. His broom rose rapidly, straight up, come back, boy. Hooch shouted, but Neville was slipping sideways off the broom, wham. A nasty thud and a crack, and Neville lay face down on the grass. His broomstick continued rising, then drifted lazily toward the forbidden forest. Madame Hooch hurried to Neville's side, her face as white as his. Broken wrist, she muttered. Come on, boy, it's all right, up you get. She turned to the rest of the class. None of you is to move while I take this boy to the hospital wing. You leave those brooms where they are or you'll be out of Hogwarts before you can say, Quidditch. Come on, dear. Neville, his face tear-streaked, clutching his wrist, hobbled off with Madame Hooch. No sooner were they out of earshot than Malfoy burst into laughter. Did you see his face, the great lump? Some Slytherins joined in, though notably not Daphne or Blaise. Shut up, Malfoy, snapped Parvati Patil. Ooh, sticking up for Longbottom, said Pansy Parkinson. Never thought you'd like fat little crybabies, Parvati. Look. Malfoy darted forward and snatched something from the grass. It's that stupid thing Longbottom's grandmother sent him. A glass ball glittered in the sun as he held it up, Neville's Remembrall. Give that here, Malfoy, said Harry quietly. Everyone stopped talking to watch. Malfoy smiled nastily. I think I'll leave it somewhere for Longbottom to find, how about up a tree? Give it here. Harry yelled, but Malfoy had leapt onto his broomstick and taken off. Without thinking, Harry grabbed his broom. No, shouted Hermione. Madame Hooch told us not to move, you'll get us all into trouble. Harry ignored her, blood pounding in his ears. He mounted the broom and kicked hard against the ground. Air rushed through his hair as he soared upward, exhilaration flooded through him, this was easy, this was wonderful. He pulled his broomstick up a little to take it even higher and heard screams from the girls below. He turned his broomstick sharply to face Malfoy in midair. The Slytherin looked stunned. Give it here, Harry called, or I'll knock you off that broom. Oh, yeah. Malfoy tried to sneer, but looked worried. Harry leaned forward and grasped the broom tightly, shooting toward Malfoy like a javelin. Malfoy barely got out of the way in time. No Crabbe and Goyle up here to save your neck, Malfoy, Harry taunted. The same thought seemed to strike Malfoy. Catch it if you can, then. He shouted, throwing the glass ball high into the air before streaking back toward the ground. Harry saw the ball rise up in slow motion, then start to fall. He leaned forward, pointing his broom handle down, next second he was gathering speed in a steep dive, racing the ball, wind whistled in his ears, he stretched out his hand, a foot from the ground he caught it, just in time to pull his broom straight, toppling gently onto the grass with the Remembrall clutched safely in his fist. Harry Potter. His heart sank. Professor McGonagall was running toward them. He got to his feet, trembling. Never, in all my time at Hogwarts, Professor McGonagall was almost speechless with shock, her glasses flashing furiously. How dare you, might have broken your neck, it wasn't his fault, Professor, be quiet, Miss Patil, but Malfoy, that's enough, Mr. Weasley. Potter, follow me, now. As Harry followed McGonagall toward the castle, he caught a last glimpse of the training grounds. Ron looked horrified, Malfoy was triumphant, and Daphne. Daphne was watching thoughtfully, her expression calculating. Word of Harry's appointment as Gryffindor Seeker spread quickly, despite Oliver Wood's attempts at secrecy. By dinner, the entire school seemed to know. Harry entered the Great Hall to find Ron waving him over enthusiastically. Seeker, he exclaimed as Harry sat down. Fred and George told me. I can't believe it. You must be the youngest house player in a century, yeah, Harry finished, taking a potato. Wood told me. Amazing. Wait till we play Slytherin. We'll flatten them. Harry's gaze drifted to the Slytherin table, where Daphne sat with Tracy Davis and Blaise Zabini, pointedly separate from Malfoy's group. As if sensing his attention, she looked up, giving him a small nod of what seemed like approval. Ron noticed the exchange and frowned. You're still talking to her? After what Malfoy did today? Daphne isn't Malfoy, Harry said firmly. Just like you aren't Percy. Ron flinched at the comparison. Low blow, Harry. Is it? You still haven't explained what I overheard. Before Ron could respond, Fred and George Weasley appeared. Well done, said George in a low voice. Wood told us. We're on the team too, beaters. I tell you, we're going to win the Quidditch Cup for sure this year, said Fred. We haven't won since Charlie left, but this year's team is brilliant. You must be good, Harry, Wood was almost skipping when he told us. Anyway, we've got to go. Lee Jordan reckons he's found a new secret passageway out of the school. Bet it's that one behind the statue of Gregory the Smarmy that we found in our first week. See you. Fred and George had hardly disappeared when Malfoy showed up, flanked by Crabbe and Goyle. Enjoying your last meal, Potter? When are you getting the train back to the Muggles? You're a lot braver now that you're back on the ground and have your little friends with you, said Harry coolly. I'd take you on any time on my own, said Malfoy. Tonight, if you want. Wizard's duel. Wands only, no contact. What's the matter? Never heard of a wizard's duel before, I suppose. Of course he has, said Ron, wheeling around. I'm his second, who's yours? Malfoy sized up Crabbe and Goyle. Crabbe, he said. Midnight all right? We'll meet you in the trophy room, that's always unlocked. As Malfoy walked away, Harry turned to Ron. What is a wizard's duel? And what do you mean, you're my second? A second's there to take over if you die, said Ron casually. When he saw Harry's expression, he added quickly, but people only die in proper duels, you know, with real wizards. The most you and Malfoy'll be able to do is send sparks at each other. Neither of you knows enough magic to do any real damage. And if I wave my wand and nothing happens? Throw it away and punch him on the nose, Ron suggested. Excuse me. They both looked up. It was Hermione Granger. Can't a person eat in peace in this place? Ron muttered. Hermione ignored him and spoke to Harry. I couldn't help overhearing what you and Malfoy were saying, bet you could, Ron muttered. And you mustn't go wandering around the school at night, think of the points you'll lose Gryffindor if you're caught, and you're bound to be. It's really very selfish of you. And it's really none of your business, said Harry. Goodbye, said Ron. As Hermione huffed away, Harry felt a twinge of guilt. Before he could dwell on it, he noticed Daphne approaching their table, causing several Gryffindors to stare openly. Potter, a word, she requested, ignoring the hostile looks. What do you want, Greengrass? Ron demanded. I wasn't addressing you, Weasley. She turned back to Harry. Privately. Harry nodded and followed her to the entrance hall, aware of the many eyes tracking their movement. Don't go tonight, Daphne said without preamble once they were alone. Harry blinked. You know about the duel. Malfoy's bragging about it to anyone who'll listen. It's a trap, Potter. He has no intention of showing up, he's going to tip off Filch. How do you know? Because I know Malfoy. He's a coward, not a duelist. And he specifically mentioned the trophy room because it's far from any teacher's quarters but close to Filch's usual patrol route. Harry considered this. Why are you warning me? Daphne sighed. Because you getting expelled over Draco's petty revenge would be a waste of potential. And because, she hesitated, allies warn each other of dangers. Allies, Harry repeated. Is that what we are? For now. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. Unless you prefer friends. Friends sounds better, Harry agreed, returning her smile. And thanks for the warning. What will you tell Weasley? Harry's smile faded. I don't know. He seems determined to go. That's his choice. Make yours. Back in Gryffindor Tower, Harry found Ron excitedly strategizing for the midnight duel. I've been thinking, Harry interrupted. It seems off that Malfoy would challenge me so publicly. What if it's a setup? Ron dismissed the idea. He's just showing off. We have to go, your reputation's at stake. My reputation? Or is it that you want to be involved in something exciting to report back to Percy? Ron's ears reddened. That's not fair, Harry. Isn't it? Greengrass thinks Malfoy's tipping off Filch. It makes sense, why else choose the trophy room? So now you're taking her word over mine. Ron stood, fists clenched. She's manipulating you, can't you see that? Slytherin stick together. Their argument attracted attention from across the common room. Hermione looked up from her books with interest, while several older students watched the confrontation unfold. I'm not going tonight, Harry stated firmly. If you want to risk expulsion over Malfoy's bait, that's your choice. Fine. Ron snapped. I'll go alone. And when I show up and Malfoy doesn't, everyone will know he's a coward, and that you believed a snake over your own housemate. He stormed upstairs to the dormitory, leaving Harry standing alone by the fire. After a moment, Hermione approached cautiously. That was sensible of you, not going, she said. Harry sighed. Thanks, I guess. Was it really Greengrass who warned you? Yeah. Apparently Malfoy's bragging about his setup all over Slytherin. Hermione looked thoughtful. That doesn't match what I've read about house loyalty. Maybe houses aren't as simple as books make them seem, Harry suggested. Later that night, Harry feigned sleep as Ron and Seamus snuck out for the midnight duel. He briefly considered following to keep them out of trouble, but decided against it. He'd made his choice. The next morning, Gryffindor House woke to find their hourglass 50 points lighter. Ron and Seamus sat miserably at breakfast, bearing the glares of their housemates. Filch was waiting for us, Ron admitted glumly. Like he knew exactly where to look. Harry said nothing, but across the hall, Daphne caught his eye and raised her goblet in a subtle toast. As October arrived, bringing chilly weather, Harry found himself increasingly caught between worlds. In Gryffindor, his friendship with Ron had cooled significantly. The redhead was civil but distant, spending more time with Seamus and Dean. Meanwhile, Harry's study sessions with Daphne had expanded to include Hermione Granger, whose initial skepticism had given way to grudging respect for the Slytherin girl's intelligence. Their unlikely trio could often be found at a back table in the library, where house affiliation seemed less important than academic collaboration. Occasionally, Blaise Zabini or Tracy Davis would join them, bringing different perspectives to their discussions. On Halloween morning, they awoke to the delicious smell of baking pumpkin wafting through the corridors. In Charms class, Professor Flitwick announced they were ready to start making objects fly, causing considerable excitement. He paired the students, placing Harry with Seamus, while Ron was partnered with Hermione, neither looking happy about this arrangement. Now, don't forget that nice wrist movement we've been practicing, squeaked Professor Flitwick. Swish and flick, remember, swish and flick. And saying the magic words properly is very important, too. Never forget Wizard Baraffio, who said S instead of F and found himself on the floor with a buffalo on his chest. It was difficult. Harry and Seamus swished and flicked, but their feather just lay on the desktop. Seamus got so impatient he prodded it with his wand and set fire to it. Harry had to put it out with his hat. At the next table, Ron wasn't having much more luck. Wingardium Leviosa. He shouted, waving his arms like a windmill. You're saying it wrong, Harry heard Hermione snap. It's Wingardium Leviosa, make the gar nice and long. You do it, then, if you're so clever, Ron snarled. Hermione rolled up her sleeves, flicked her wand, and said, Wingardium Leviosa. Their feather rose off the desk and hovered about 4 feet above their heads. Oh, well done, cried Professor Flitwick, clapping. Everyone see here, Miss Granger's done it. Ron was in a very bad mood by the end of the class. It's no wonder no one can stand her, he said loudly as they pushed their way into the crowded corridor. She's a nightmare, honestly. Someone knocked into Harry as they hurried past him. It was Hermione. Harry caught a glimpse of her face, and was startled to see that she was in tears. I think she heard you, Harry said. So, said Ron, but he looked a bit uncomfortable. She must have noticed she's got no friends. She has friends, Harry replied. Just because you don't like her doesn't mean others feel the same. Ron snorted. Right, her and Greengrass, the know-it-all and the snake. Perfect match. Harry stopped walking. What is your problem lately? Ever since I questioned why you and Percy were talking about me, not everything is about you, Harry. Ron exploded. Maybe I'm tired of you turning your back on your own house to hang out with Slytherins. Maybe I'm tired of you acting like you know better than everyone when you've been in the wizarding world for all of 2 months. Students in the corridor stared at them. Harry felt his face heating up, but kept his voice level. Maybe I'm tired of people deciding who I should be friends with based on what color tie they wear. If that makes me a bad Gryffindor in your eyes, I can live with that. He walked away, leaving Ron fuming in the middle of the corridor. Hermione didn't show up for their next class and wasn't seen all afternoon. On his way to the Halloween feast, Harry overheard Parvati Patil telling Lavender Brown that Hermione was crying in the girls' bathroom and wanted to be left alone. Concerned, Harry slipped away to check on her. He found Daphne already outside the bathroom door, looking worried. Granger's in there? Harry asked, joining her. Daphne nodded. Tracy heard her crying. I tried talking to her, but she won't come out. Hermione? Harry called through the door. It's Harry and Daphne. Ron's an idiot, don't listen to him. A hiccuping sound came from inside. Gee, go away. Not until you come out, Harry insisted. The feast is starting. There's 1,000 floating pumpkins and live bats, and I don't care about the stupid feast. Hermione sobbed. Just leave me alone. Daphne sighed. Granger, hiding in bathrooms doesn't solve anything. Believe me, I've tried. There was a pause, then, you have. First year is difficult for everyone. Come to the feast. Show Weasley his words didn't affect you. After another long pause, the door cracked open. Hermione peered out, her face blotchy and eyes red. There we go, Harry said gently. Come on, we'll be late. The three of them started toward the Great Hall, Hermione walking between them. They had just turned the corner when Harry stopped abruptly. Do you smell something? Daphne wrinkled her nose. Like, rotten eggs and old socks. A low grunting and shuffling footfalls reached their ears. Then, at the end of the passage to the left, something huge moved into view. It was a horrible sight, 12 feet tall, its skin dull granite gray, its lumpy body like a boulder with a small bald head perched on top. It had short legs as thick as tree trunks with flat, horny feet. The smell coming from it was incredible. It held a huge wooden club, which dragged along the floor because its arms were so long. Troll, Daphne whispered, her face pale. Mountain troll. Run, Harry urged, grabbing both girls' arms. Run. They turned to flee, but the troll had spotted them. It let out a roar and lumbered forward with surprising speed. Harry pushed the girls ahead of him. Split up. Daphne shouted. They're slow-witted, it can't chase all of us. Harry nodded. Hermione, go with Daphne. I'll lead it the other way. No. Hermione cried. We should stay, but Harry was already moving, waving his arms and yelling to attract the troll's attention. Hey! Over here, you big ugly troll. The creature hesitated, then turned toward Harry, raising its club. Harry darted down a side corridor, the troll following with another ear-splitting roar. Harry ran, his heart pounding in his ears. The corridor ended in a T-junction. Left would lead deeper into the castle, right would lead toward the main staircase where he might find help. He turned right, and found himself facing a dead end. The troll's footsteps thundered behind him. Harry spun around, wand drawn, though he had no idea what spell could stop a mountain troll. The creature filled the corridor, blocking any escape. It raised its massive club, grinning stupidly. Wingardium Leviosa. The club flew suddenly out of the troll's hand, rose high into the air, turned slowly over, and dropped, with a sickening crack, onto its owner's head. The troll swayed, then fell flat on its face with a thud that made the whole corridor tremble. Harry looked up. Daphne and Hermione stood at the junction, their wands raised, both wearing expressions of astonishment at what they had done. That actually worked, Daphne breathed. Brilliant, Harry said, stepping carefully around the unconscious troll. Both of you, absolutely brilliant. A sudden slamming and loud footsteps made the three of them look up. They hadn't realized what a racket they had been making, but of course, someone downstairs must have heard the crashes and the troll's roars. A moment later, Professor McGonagall had come bursting into the corridor, closely followed by Snape and Quirrell. Quirrell took one look at the troll, let out a faint whimper, and sat quickly down on the floor. Snape bent over the troll. Professor McGonagall was looking at Harry, Daphne, and Hermione. Harry had never seen her look so angry. Her lips were white. "What on earth were you thinking?" said Professor McGonagall, with cold fury in her voice. "You're lucky you weren't killed. Why aren't you in your dormitories?" Snape gave Harry a swift, piercing look. Then his eyes shifted to Daphne, one eyebrow raised slightly. "Please, Professor McGonagall, they were looking for me." Hermione had stepped forward, her head high despite her tear-streaked face. "Miss Granger. I went looking for the troll because I thought I could deal with it on my own, you know, because I've read all about them." Harry and Daphne stared at her. Hermione Granger, telling a downright lie to a teacher. "If they hadn't found me, I'd be dead now." Harry distracted it, and Daphne and I used Wingardium Leviosa to knock it out with its own club. They didn't have time to fetch anyone. It was about to finish me off when they arrived. "Well, in that case," said Professor McGonagall, staring at the three of them, "Miss Granger, you foolish girl, how could you think of tackling a mountain troll on your own?" Hermione hung her head. "Miss Granger, 5 points will be taken from Gryffindor for this," said Professor McGonagall. "I'm very disappointed in you. As for you two," she turned to Harry and Daphne, "unusual as this alliance may be, I must admit it was sheer luck you even found Miss Granger, but not many first years could have taken on a full-grown mountain troll. 5 points to each of your houses. Professor Dumbledore will be informed of this. You may go." They hurried out of the corridor and didn't speak at all until they had climbed 2 floors up. It was a relief to be away from the smell of the troll, quite apart from anything else. "Thanks for the lie," Daphne said to Hermione. "That was unexpectedly Slytherin of you." Hermione gave a weak smile. "I owed you both. And I guess houses really aren't everything, are they?" "Definitely not," Harry agreed. "We should get to our common rooms before we find any more trolls." "Wait," Hermione said. "Did you see Professor Snape? His leg was bleeding." Harry frowned. "No, I didn't notice." "I did," Daphne confirmed. "Looked like a bite of some kind. Fresh, too." The three exchanged significant looks. "The third-floor corridor," Harry whispered. "The one that's forbidden," Hermione added. Daphne's eyes narrowed. "The question is, why would Snape go there during the feast, when everyone else was supposed to be in the Great Hall?" "I think," Harry said slowly, "we need to find out what's being kept on the 3rd floor." From that moment on, Hermione Granger became their friend. There are some things you can't share without ending up liking each other, and knocking out a 12-foot mountain troll is one of them. And as the three of them parted ways, Harry and Hermione to Gryffindor Tower, Daphne to the dungeons, they knew that something fundamental had shifted in the social landscape of Hogwarts. The boy who lived had rejected the expected path and chosen his own allies. And the wizarding world would never be quite the same. Chapter 2, Lines in the Sand. November arrived at Hogwarts with a bitter cold that frosted the grounds each morning and chilled the stone corridors. Harry woke early on a Saturday, his breath visible in the dormitory air. Perfect Quidditch weather, according to Oliver Wood, anyway. Harry dressed quietly, careful not to wake his dorm mates. Ron's snores rumbled from behind his curtains. Their relationship had deteriorated further after the troll incident, especially when word spread that Harry had teamed up with a Slytherin to defeat it. The divide in Gryffindor was growing, those who viewed Harry's crosshouse friendships with suspicion, and those who found his independence refreshing. Grabbing his Nimbus 2000, a fact that still amazed him daily, Harry headed to the common room, surprised to find Hermione already up, surrounded by books. "Morning," he greeted. "Bit early for studying, isn't it?" "This isn't for class," Hermione whispered excitedly. "I've been researching magical objects that need special protection." "Look," she pushed a massive tome toward him, titled Magical Artifacts of Extraordinary Power. "Any luck?" Harry asked, skimming the page. "Not specifically, but I've narrowed it down. Whatever's hidden on the third floor must be small enough for Hagrid to carry, valuable enough to steal, and dangerous enough to protect with that dog." Harry nodded. After the troll incident, he told Hermione about his trip to Gringotts with Hagrid and the mysterious package from Vault 713. Combined with Snape's injured leg, it painted an intriguing picture. "Daphne thinks it might be a historical artifact," Harry said. "She's checking her family's library references over Christmas break." Hermione closed her book. "Speaking of Daphne, I've been meaning to ask, what exactly is the Sacred 28 she mentioned? I couldn't find it in any of our textbooks." "That's because it's not something they teach in class," Harry explained, recalling Daphne's lessons. "It's a list of the 28 families considered truly pure blood by some wizard named Cantankerous not back in the 1930s. Daphne's family is on it. So are the Malfoys, the Weasleys, and a bunch of others. But not your family?" "No. The Potters weren't included, supposedly because Potter is a common Muggle name. Daphne says it was really because her grandfather spoke out against pureblood supremacy." Hermione frowned. "That sounds terribly elitist." "It is. But it matters in wizarding politics." Harry checked his watch. "I should get down to breakfast before practice." "Coming?" The great hall was nearly empty at this hour. A few early risers scattered among the tables, including, to Harry's surprise, Daphne. She sat alone at the Slytherin table, a leather-bound notebook open beside her plate. She looked up as Harry and Hermione entered, giving them a small nod. Harry hesitated, then made a decision. Instead of heading to the Gryffindor table, he walked directly to where Daphne sat. Hermione followed after a moment's pause. "Mind if we join you?" Harry asked. Daphne's eyebrows rose slightly. "Bold move, Potter. Sitting at another house's table isn't exactly common. Is it against the rules?" "No," she admitted. "Just tradition." "Then budge over," Harry said, sliding onto the bench beside her. Hermione took the seat opposite, looking nervous but determined. A ripple of whispers spread among the few students present. At the staff table, Professor McGonagall watched with pursed lips, while Snape's eyes narrowed dangerously. Dumbledore, however, observed the scene with apparent interest, his blue eyes twinkling behind his half-moon spectacles. "You realize you're making a statement," Daphne murmured as Harry served himself eggs. "Good." Harry buttered his toast. "About time someone challenged these house divisions." Daphne's lips quirked. Gryffindor bravery with Slytherin political instinct. Interesting combination. Hermione leaned forward. "Actually, Daphne, I was hoping to ask you about the Wisengamot. Harry mentioned the Potter family has a seat." "Indeed. The Potter seat is currently held in trust until Harry comes of age." Daphne glanced around, then lowered her voice. "Which is why it's peculiar that Harry was placed with Muggles rather than a wizarding family who could teach him about his responsibilities." "Who decides that sort of thing?" Harry asked. Normally the parents will, followed by the Department of Magical Children's Welfare. But in your case. She hesitated. My father believes Dumbledore circumvented standard procedures using his multiple positions of authority. Harry's appetite diminished. So Dumbledore specifically wanted me raised without knowing anything about magic or my family? It appears that way. Daphne closed her notebook. The question is why? To control me, Harry said flatly. Keep me dependent on him for information. Hermione looked troubled. That's a serious accusation, Harry. Think about it, Hermione. Hagrid picked me up, told me the bare minimum, and painted a simple picture: Slytherin bad, Gryffindor good, Dumbledore greatest wizard ever. Then I, coincidentally, meet the Weasleys, who steer me further in that direction and report on me to Percy, who reports to Dumbledore. And no one ever mentioned your family's political position or history, Daphne added. Convenient, isn't it? Their conversation paused as more students filtered into the hall. Among them was Draco Malfoy, who stopped short at the sight of Gryffindors at the Slytherin table. What's this? He drawled. House table's not good enough for the famous Potter. Just expanding my horizons, Malfoy, Harry replied coolly. You should try it sometime. Consorting with blood traitors and mudbloods now, Greengrass. Draco sneered. Your father would be disappointed. Harry's wand was in his hand before he realized it. Apologize, Malfoy. Now. Daphne placed a restraining hand on Harry's arm. My father taught me to judge people by their actions and abilities, Draco. Granger consistently outperforms you academically, and Potter shows more political acumen than you've demonstrated all term. Several nearby Slytherins snickered. Malfoy's pale face flushed pink. You'll regret choosing them over your own kind, he hissed before stalking away, Crabbe and Goyle lumbering after him. What was that word he called Hermione? Harry asked, still gripping his wand. Mudblood, Daphne said quietly. It's a disgusting slur for Muggleborns. Never use it. Hermione's face had paled. Because my blood is dirty? It's nonsense, Harry said firmly. Complete rubbish. Biologically, yes, Daphne agreed. Politically, however, blood status remains a dividing line in our world. My family doesn't subscribe to blood supremacy, but we acknowledge its influence. It's no different than racism in the Muggle world, Hermione said, recovering her composure. Equally absurd and harmful. Daphne looked thoughtful. I'd never considered the Muggle parallel. That's, actually quite insightful. The Great Hall had filled considerably during their conversation. Ron entered with Seamus and Dean, doing a double-take when he spotted Harry at the Slytherin table. His expression hardened before he deliberately turned away. I should get to Quidditch practice, Harry sighed, standing. Wood will have kittens if I'm late. Good luck, said Hermione. Be careful, Daphne added. First matches can be unpredictable. As Harry grabbed his broom and headed for the door, whispers followed in his wake. The boy who lived, openly fraternizing with Slytherins. Lines were being drawn, and Harry Potter had just made it clear where he stood. Focus, Potter. The snitch won't catch itself. Oliver Wood's voice boomed across the Quidditch pitch as Harry circled above the team practice. The weather had worsened, sleet now stinging his face as he scanned for the tiny golden ball. The first match against Slytherin was only a week away, and Wood had intensified their training regimen to brutal levels. Harry didn't mind. Flying was the one place where everything else disappeared, Dumbledore's manipulations, Ron's coldness, even the mystery of the third-floor corridor. A flash of gold near the Ravenclaw stands caught his eye. Harry leaned forward on his nimbus, acceleration pressing him against the handle as he rocketed toward the snitch. The wind howled in his ears, his robes flapped wildly, and then his fingers closed around the cold metal sphere. Excellent catch, Potter. Wood shouted as Harry descended to the pitch. Do that next Saturday and the cup is as good as ours. The rest of the team landed around them, Fred and George Weasley shivering dramatically. Nice one, Harry," Fred stammered through chattering teeth. "Just think," George added, "in a few years, he'll be able to cast a warming charm and won't turn into a Pottercycle during practice." Harry grinned. Unlike Percy and Ron, the twins had remained friendly despite his Slytherin connections. They seemed to find the entire situation amusing rather than concerning. "All right, team," Wood announced, "one more formation drill and then, well. Spying on the competition, Flint." Harry turned to see Marcus Flint, the burly Slytherin Quidditch captain, approaching with several of his teammates. Their green robes stark against the grey landscape. "Just observing," Flint replied with a sharp-toothed grin. "Professor Snape approved our request to watch." "You mean to intimidate," Wood countered, stepping forward. Harry noticed Terence Higgs, the Slytherin seeker, studying him carefully. Unlike his teammates, Higgs didn't wear a mocking expression, just calculated assessment. "Your seeker's got decent speed," Higgs commented, surprising everyone with his neutral tone. "Good instincts too." Thanks," Harry replied awkwardly. "Don't go soft, Higgs," Flint growled. "Remember who you're playing for." Wood positioned himself between the teams. "Practice is over. Let's go." As the Gryffindor team trudged toward the locker rooms, Harry felt a tap on his shoulder. Higgs had broken away from his team. "Word of advice, Potter," he said quietly. "Watch your drink at breakfast before the match. Flint's not above a mild stomach-troubling potion in the opponent's pumpkin juice." Harry blinked in surprise. "Why tell me this?" "Daphne Greengrass said you're worth talking to." "That's rare praise." Higgs shrugged. "Besides, I'd rather win because I'm the better seeker, not because you're puking off your broom." Before Harry could respond, Higgs jogged back to the Slytherin team, leaving Harry bewildered. "What did he want?" demanded Wood, suddenly beside him. "Just sizing up the competition, I think," Harry said, deciding to keep Higgs's warning to himself. Wood scowled. "Don't trust any of them, Harry. Slytherins play dirty, it's in their nature." Harry thought of Daphne's measured advice, her calculated political assessments. Of Higgs's unexpected fair play warning. "I'm not sure that's true, Oliver. Not all of them, anyway." Wood looked like he wanted to argue but instead sighed heavily. "Just be careful, yeah. There's a reason house rivalries exist." "Maybe," Harry replied. "But I'm starting to think those reasons aren't very good ones." The evening before the match, Harry, Hermione, and Daphne gathered in their usual corner of the library. What had begun as occasional study sessions had evolved into regular meetings, sometimes joined by others: Blaise Zabini, with his dry wit, Tracy Davis, Daphne's closest Slytherin friend, occasionally even Neville Longbottom, who had gratefully attached himself to their group after Harry returned his remembrall. Tonight, however, it was just the three of them, huddled around a table stacked with books that had nothing to do with first-year coursework. "I've been thinking about the dog," Harry whispered. It was standing on a trapdoor. "Obviously guarding something," Daphne agreed, flipping through notable magical objects of the 20th century. Hermione frowned. "But a three-headed dog seems extreme for a school. Why not keep whatever it is at Gringotts?" "Someone already tried stealing from Gringotts," Harry reminded her. "The same day Hagrid emptied that vault." "The timing can't be coincidental," Daphne mused. "The break-in fails, so Dumbledore moves the object here, supposedly for greater protection. Or to use as bait," Harry suggested. Both girls looked at him sharply. "Think about it," he continued. "What better place to catch a thief than a school controlled by the most powerful wizard alive? Set a trap, wait for them to go after it, then, bam, catch them in the act." "That's," Hermione began. "Entirely plausible," Daphne finished. "It's exactly the kind of chess move Dumbledore would make." "But that puts students at risk," Hermione protested. "Since when has that stopped him?" Harry asked bitterly. He left me with abusive relatives for 10 years. An uncomfortable silence fell. Hermione still struggled with criticism of authority figures, especially ones as revered as Dumbledore. What we need, Daphne said finally, is to know exactly what's being hidden. Then we might understand why it's worth such risk. And who might be after it, Harry added. Snape's the obvious suspect, with his injured leg. Too obvious, Daphne countered. Professor Snape is many things, but subtle is definitely one of them. If he wanted to steal something, he wouldn't leave such an obvious trail. Unless that's exactly what he wants us to think, Hermione suggested. Now you're thinking like a Slytherin, Daphne said approvingly. Harry closed his book with a sigh. I should get some sleep. Wood wants us at breakfast by 7 for his pre-match pep talk. About that, Daphne said, reaching into her bag. Here. Take this. She handed him a small crystal vial containing a pale blue liquid. What is it? Harry asked, examining it suspiciously. Antidote to common digestive disturbances. Take it before breakfast. At Harry's questioning look, she added, Slytherin's first match tradition involves tampering with the opposing seeker's food. Higgs warned me about that, Harry admitted. Daphne raised an eyebrow. Did he? Interesting. I can't believe teachers don't stop this kind of cheating, Hermione huffed. They would if they caught it, Daphne replied. But it's usually untraceable and mild enough to seem like pre-game nerves. Harry pocketed the vial. Thanks. I'd rather not spend my first match clutching my broom with one hand and my stomach with the other. Just catch the snitch quickly, Daphne advised. The longer the game goes, the rougher Flint's tactics become. Aren't you supposed to be supporting your own house? Hermione asked curiously. Daphne's expression remained impassive, but her eyes sparkled. I support those who demonstrate merit. Besides, she added with the ghost of a smile, Malfoy's unbearable when Slytherin wins. His ego needs no further inflation. Harry woke before dawn on Saturday, too nervous to sleep. He dressed quietly and sat on his bed, turning Daphne's vial over in his hands. Trust had never come easily to him, the Dursleys had taught him that lesson thoroughly, yet here he was, contemplating drinking a potion given to him by a Slytherin he'd known for barely 2 months. But Daphne had never steered him wrong. From warning him about the midnight duel trap to sharing political knowledge no one else offered, she'd proven herself trustworthy. The question was whether he was brave enough to return that trust. Decision made, Harry uncorked the vial and swallowed the contents in one gulp. It tasted of mint and something unidentifiable but not unpleasant. A cool sensation spread through his body, settling in his stomach. By the time he reached the great hall for breakfast, Harry felt strangely calm despite the upcoming match. Wood was already at the Gryffindor table, mechanically spearing sausages while reviewing play diagrams. Morning, Potter, he grunted as Harry sat down. Eat up. Need your strength. Not too much, warned Angelina Johnson. Nothing worse than a full stomach when you're diving for the snitch. Harry served himself a modest portion of eggs and toast, remembering Higgs's warning to watch his drink. He deliberately left his goblet untouched, using a water flask from his Quidditch gear instead. The hall gradually filled with students dressed in house colors. The atmosphere crackled with pre-match excitement. At the Slytherin table, Marcus Flint kept shooting Harry predatory glances, while Malfoy mimed falling off a broom. Ignore them, advised Fred Weasley, appearing beside Harry. Psychological warfare. Ancient Quidditch tradition, George agreed, sliding onto the bench. We've enchanted their shower heads to spray green dye. Won't show on their robes, but their skin will match their house colors for days, Fred finished with a wicked grin. You didn't, Hermione gasped as she joined them. Course not, George said innocently. We're perfect gentlemen, added Fred. Who merely placed the enchantment, without actually activating it, unless, say, someone happened to win by cheating, in which case an activation charm might accidentally trigger. Hermione rolled her eyes, but Harry laughed, feeling some tension release. The twins had a gift for lightening any situation. As the team left for the locker rooms, Harry spotted Daphne watching from the Slytherin table. She gave him a small nod, which he returned. Across the hall, Ron scowled at the exchange. "Potter." Harry turned to find Professor McGonagall beside him. "A word." She led him to a quiet corner of the entrance hall. "I wish to ensure you're prepared for today's match," she said, her voice gentler than usual. "It can be overwhelming, especially for one so young." "I'll be fine, Professor," Harry assured her. "Very well." She hesitated, then added, "Your father would be proud. He was an exceptional chaser in his day." Harry blinked in surprise. It was the first time a teacher had voluntarily offered information about his parents. "He was. I didn't know that." McGonagall's expression softened. "Indeed. James Potter could have played professionally had he chosen that path. Your mother would attend every match, despite claiming to find the sport barbaric." A fond smile briefly crossed her face. She secretly kept score, though. Never missed a point. Harry absorbed this small glimpse into his parents' lives hungrily. "Thank you for telling me. You've been making unexpected choices this term, Potter," McGonagall continued, her tone shifting. "Crosshouse friendships that have raised eyebrows." Harry stiffened. "Is that against the rules, Professor?" "Not at all. In fact, in my personal opinion, it shows admirable character." She glanced around before continuing quietly. "Not everyone shares that view, however. Be careful, Potter. Independence is commendable, but it can make powerful people uncomfortable." Before Harry could ask what she meant, Wood appeared, anxiously checking his watch. "There you are, Potter. Team meeting started 5 minutes ago." "Good luck, Potter," McGonagall said, resuming her usual brisk manner. "Do try to catch the snitch before Mr. Wood hyperventilates." The roar of the crowd was deafening as the Gryffindor team emerged onto the pitch. Opposite them, the Slytherin team appeared, their green robes gleaming in the November sunlight. "And here comes the Gryffindor team." Lee Jordan's voice boomed across the stadium. Wood, Johnson, Spinnet, Bell, Weasley, and Potter, the youngest Seeker in a century. In the stands, Harry spotted a giant banner reading, "Potter for President," with a lion that changed colors thanks to Dean Thomas's artistic skills. Nearby, Hermione sat with Neville and, surprisingly, Daphne, who had chosen to sit in the neutral section rather than with her house. Madame Hooch stood between the teams. "Captains, shake hands." Wood and Flint approached each other, clasping hands with what appeared to be bone-crushing force. "Mount your brooms. On my whistle, 3, 2, 1. The shrill blast sent 14 players shooting upward. Harry rose above the action, as Wood had instructed, searching for the golden snitch while keeping an eye on Higgs. "And the quaffle is taken immediately by Angelina Johnson of Gryffindor, excellent chaser, that girl, and rather attractive too, Jordan." "Sorry, Professor." Johnson passes to Spinnet, back to Johnson, heading straight for the Slytherin goal posts, OUCH, hit hard by a bludger from Slytherin beater Derek. Harry tuned out the commentary, focusing entirely on his search. The snitch could appear anywhere, and spotting it first would give him a crucial advantage over Higgs. A bludger whistled past his ear, nearly unseating him. Fred Weasley streaked after it, batting it toward Flint. "All right there, Harry," he called as he zoomed past. "Fine." Harry shouted back, executing a quick roll to avoid another bludger. The game grew increasingly dirty as Slytherin fell behind. Flint deliberately collided with Alicia Spinnet, claiming he hadn't seen her. George Weasley elbowed Flint in retaliation, earning Slytherin a penalty. Through it all, Harry continued his search, aware of Higgs shadowing his movements rather than hunting independently. It was a standard tactic against an inexperienced seeker, but it meant Harry needed to spot the snitch first. Then he saw it, a flash of gold near the Gryffindor goal posts. Without hesitation, Harry accelerated, his Nimbus 2000 responding instantly to his command. The wind roared in his ears as he dived, Higgs belatedly scrambling to follow. "Potter's seen the snitch!" Jordan yelled. "Look at that Nimbus go!" Harry was closing in, arm outstretched, when his broom gave a sudden, violent jerk. He gripped the handle with both hands, abandoning the chase as his Nimbus bucked like a rodeo bull. The snitch vanished. "What's happening?" he muttered, trying to turn back toward the center of the pitch. The broom wouldn't respond. Instead, it zigzagged through the air, then rolled over, nearly throwing him off. No one else seemed to notice his predicament, all eyes on the quaffle. The Nimbus continued its erratic movement, now jerking so hard that Harry could barely hold on. Gradually, players began to point up at him. The crowd gasped as his broom started rolling over and over, with him barely clinging on. Finally, Fred and George flew up to try and help, attempting to pull Harry onto one of their brooms, but every time they got near, the Nimbus would jump higher. They dropped lower, circling beneath him, obviously hoping to catch him if he fell. "What's wrong with Potter's broom?" Flint seized the distraction to score 5 goals without anyone noticing. Harry's fingers were slipping. The broom vibrated so hard it was almost impossible to hang on. The whole crowd was on its feet, watching in horror as the Weasleys tried to reach him. Suddenly, his broom stopped jerking. Harry quickly regained control and swung himself back on. As he did, he noticed something strange in the teacher's box. Snape was on his feet, his robes smoking slightly, and Professor Quirrell had tumbled into the row in front of him. No time to process that now. Harry dived, spotting a golden gleam near the ground. The crowd screamed as he plummeted, Higgs hot on his tail. At the last second, Harry pulled up, skimming the grass. He reached out, nearly there, something hit him from behind. Flint had abandoned his position to block Harry bodily. The impact sent Harry tumbling forward off his broom. He rolled across the pitch, coming up on his hands and knees, gagging. "Foul!" screamed the Gryffindors. Madame Hooch's whistle blew as she berated Flint, but Harry wasn't listening. He was retching, having swallowed something during his fall. With a final cough, something gold popped into his palm. "I've got the snitch," he shouted, waving it above his head. The stadium exploded with noise. Flint howled in protest, claiming Harry hadn't caught the snitch but nearly swallowed it, but it made no difference. Harry hadn't broken any rules. Gryffindor wins, 170 points to 60. Lee Jordan announced jubilantly. As his teammates surrounded him, Harry looked up at the stands. Hermione was jumping up and down, hugging Neville. And Daphne, proper, composed Daphne, was actually smiling, giving him a small but definite thumbs up. Half an hour later, Harry exited the locker room to find his friends waiting. Hermione rushed forward to hug him, while Daphne maintained a respectable distance, though her pleased expression was obvious. "Harry, it was Snape," Hermione whispered urgently. "He was cursing your broom." "I saw him," Daphne confirmed. "Staring at you, muttering continuously. Classic signs of a jinx." "But then Quirrell knocked him over, and your broom stopped," Hermione added. Harry frowned, remembering the smoking robes. "What happened exactly?" "I may have set Snape's robes on fire," Hermione admitted, blushing. "Just a small bluebell flame." "You what?" Harry gaped at her. "Impressive initiative, Granger," Daphne remarked. "I wouldn't have expected it. Why would Snape try to kill me?" Harry wondered. Daphne's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps it connects to whatever's hidden on the 3rd floor. We need to speak with Hagrid," Harry decided. He let slip about the dog and Nicholas Flamel before. Maybe he knows something else. They found Hagrid in his hut, brewing a pot of strong tea. His enormous black boarhound, Fong, bounded forward to greet them, nearly knocking Harry over with his enthusiastic welcome. "Been watchin' from me hut," Hagrid said, pouring boiling water into a teapot the size of a bucket. "Shoulda been a foul, that, what Flint did. Ruddy cheat." He paused, noticing Daphne for the first time. "And who might you be?" "Daphne Greengrass, sir. Slytherin house." Hagrid's bushy eyebrows rose. "A Slytherin, eh? Don, get many of ye visitin' me." "Daphne's different," Harry said firmly. "She's my friend." Hagrid studied her for a moment, then nodded. "Any friend of Harry's is welcome here. But I'm surprised ter see ye two mix in. Not usual, Gryffindors and Slytherins." "That's what everyone keeps saying," Harry sighed. "Honestly, Hagrid, those house stereotypes are getting old." "It's more complicated than stereotypes, Harry," Daphne explained. "The houses represent genuine philosophical differences. Ambition versus bravery. Cunning versus chivalry. The divide has existed since the founders' time." "Seems pointless to me," Harry insisted. "We're all here to learn magic, aren't we? Why can't we just work together?" Hagrid chuckled. "Yeah, sound like your mother, Harry. Lily was always sayin' houses didn't matter. Had friends in all four, she did." "Really?" Harry leaned forward eagerly. "No one ever tells me things like that." "Ah, well." Hagrid looked uncomfortable. "S'pose they have their reasons. Like keeping me ignorant about my family history?" Harry challenged. "Or the Potter Wisengamot seat? Or the fact that Snape just tried to kill me during the match?" Hagrid's teacup clattered into its saucer. "Rubbish. Why would Snape try to kill ye?" "I know a jinx when I see one, Hagrid," Hermione insisted. "I've read all about them. You have to maintain eye contact, and Snape wasn't blinking." "I'm tellin' ye, you're wrong." Hagrid protested. "Professor Snape is a Hogwarts teacher. He wouldn't try to kill a student." "Then why did he try to get past the three-headed dog on Halloween?" Harry demanded. "We know he was bitten. We think he's trying to steal whatever it's guarding." Hagrid dropped the teapot, spilling tea across the rough wooden table. "How do ye know about Fluffy?" "Fluffy?" all three students exclaimed simultaneously. "Yeah, he's mine. Bought him off a Greek chappie I met in the pub last year. Lent him to Dumbledore to guard the—" He stopped abruptly. "The what?" Harry pressed. "Now, don't ask me any more," Hagrid said gruffly. "That's top secret, that is. But Snape's trying to steal it." Hermione insisted. "Rubbish," Hagrid repeated. "Professor Snape is one of the teachers protecting the stone. He's not about to steal it." "The stone?" Harry pounced on the slip. Hagrid looked furious with himself. "Forget I said that. What that dog's garden is strictly between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel." "Aha," said Harry. "So there's someone called Nicholas Flamel involved, is there?" Hagrid gave him a frustrated glare, clearly realizing he'd been outmaneuvered. Daphne, who had remained quiet during this exchange, suddenly straightened. "Nicholas Flamel," she murmured. "Of course. The Philosopher's Stone." Hagrid's reaction, nearly dropping another teacup, confirmed her guess. "How do you know that?" Hermione asked, impressed. "My family's library includes biographies of historically significant wizards," Daphne explained. "Flamel is over 600 years old, famous for creating the only known Philosopher's Stone, which produces the elixir of life and can transform metals into gold." "Yeah, shouldn't I work that out," Hagrid groaned. "Forget ya heard it, all of ya. What that stone's doin' here is none of your business. It's dangerous. Now listen to me, all three of ya, you're meddlin' in things that don't concern ya. Forget that dog, and forget what it's guardin'. That's between Professor Dumbledore and Nicholas Flamel. But if Snape's trying to steal it, Harry began. Codswallop, Hagrid interrupted firmly. Professor Snape is a Hogwarts teacher. He has Dumbledore's complete trust. So why did he try to kill Harry? Hermione challenged. I don't know why Harry's broom acted like that, but Snape wouldn't try and kill a student. Now, listen to me, all three of ye. You're meddling in dangerous things. You forget that dog, and you forget what it's garden. That's dangerous business. As they walked back to the castle, Harry mulled over the new information. The Philosopher's Stone, he repeated. Immortality and unlimited gold. No wonder someone's trying to steal it. But is it really Snape? Hermione wondered. Perhaps, Daphne mused, or perhaps he was trying to counter a curse, not cast one. What do you mean? Harry asked. Dark magic requires eye contact, but so do counter curses. What if Snape was trying to save you? Why would he? He hates me. That's a separate question. I'm merely suggesting we consider all possibilities. Either way, Hermione said, the stone must be incredibly valuable. Why move it to a school, though? Because Dumbledore's playing chess again, Harry said grimly. And we're all just pieces on his board. As November faded into December, Hogwarts transformed. Snow blanketed the grounds, the lake froze solid, and festive decorations appeared throughout the castle. Professor Flitwick's classroom featured live fairies illuminating the Christmas tree, while enchanted mistletoe in the corridors trapped unwary students until they received a kiss of release. Harry found himself almost looking forward to the holidays. For the first time, Christmas wouldn't mean extra chores and watching Dudley open mountains of presents. He had signed up to remain at Hogwarts, as had Hermione, whose parents were attending a dental conference in Switzerland. I've ordered books for both of you, Hermione announced as their study group met for the last time before break. Don't worry, they're not textbooks, well, not entirely. How thoughtful, Daphne remarked dryly. She had grown more comfortable showing emotion around them, though her Slytherin mask remained firmly in place among others. Will you be staying at Hogwarts too? Harry asked her. Daphne shook her head. Father insists I return home. The Greengrass Yule Gathering is an important political event. She hesitated, then added, he actually asked if you'd be interested in attending, Harry. Me? Harry blinked in surprise. The Potter name still carries significant weight. Many families would be interested in meeting you in a less structured environment than Hogwarts. You mean without Dumbledore watching, Harry translated. Precisely. Harry considered it. Meeting influential wizarding families could provide valuable connections and information. But something held him back, perhaps the lingering fear that it was all still too new, too fragile. Maybe next year, he decided. I think I need this time to process everything I've learned so far. Daphne nodded, unsurprised. A reasonable choice. I'll inform Father. He'll understand. Speaking of understanding, Hermione interjected, I've been researching the Founder's original vision for house cooperation. Did you know Godric Gryffindor and Salazar Slytherin were best friends before their falling out? Of course, Daphne replied. Their friendship shattered over Muggle-born admission policies. Slytherin believed magic should remain within established families, while Gryffindor advocated broader inclusion. But they worked together for years before that, Hermione pressed. The houses weren't meant to be enemies, they were meant to complement each other. Noble idealism, Daphne acknowledged. Reality is messier. Harry, who had been quiet during this exchange, suddenly spoke. We're proof it can work, aren't we? Gryffindor bravery, Slytherin cunning, Ravenclaw wisdom, he nodded at Hermione, who often joked she'd nearly been sorted there. We're 3 first years, Daphne pointed out pragmatically. Hardly revolutionary. Everyone starts somewhere, Harry countered. Maybe we're just the beginning. On Christmas morning, Harry woke to find a small pile of presents at the foot of his bed. He stared in amazement, he'd never had proper Christmas gifts before. From Hermione, there was a luxury eagle feather quill set and a book titled Quidditch Through the Ages. Hagrid had sent a hand-carved wooden flute. Even the Dursleys had mailed a 50-pence piece, which Harry set aside for Ron's father, who collected Muggle money. The most puzzling gift was a package containing a fluid, silvery grey cloth that slipped through his fingers like water. A note attached read simply, "Your father left this in my possession before he died. It is time it was returned to you. Use it well. A very Merry Christmas to you." There was no signature. "I know what that is," exclaimed Ron, who had remained at Hogwarts with his brothers. Despite their strained relationship, he had wandered over when he saw Harry opening gifts. "It's an invisibility cloak. They're really rare and valuable." Harry wrapped the cloak around himself, gasping when his body vanished completely. "There's a note," Ron pointed out. "Who sent it?" "It doesn't say." Harry pondered the mysterious gift. His father's cloak, returned after 10 years, but by whom? And why now? He unwrapped his final present, a small box containing an ornate silver ring bearing a crest, a shield with a griffin and 3 stars. "That's the Potter family signet ring," Ron exclaimed, wide-eyed. "Blimey, Harry, that's worth a fortune." Inside the box was a parchment note in elegant script. "Harry, while researching your family's political history for my father, I discovered the Potter heir ring remained in your family vault rather than being sent to you upon your 11th birthday, as is customary. Father arranged for the goblins to forward it, as is your right. The ring bears enchantments that protect against most mind-influencing magic, including mild compulsion charms and basic legilimency. Wearing it may prove useful at Hogwarts. Happy Christmas, Daphne Greengrass P.S. My father would still welcome a meeting at your convenience." Harry slipped the ring onto his right hand. It adjusted itself to fit perfectly, and he felt a strange warmth spread up his arm, as though the magic recognized him. "You're not actually going to wear that, are you?" Ron asked, frowning. "It's all pure-blood politics rubbish." "It was my father's," Harry said simply. "And my grandfather's before him." "Yeah, but," Ron stopped, his expression conflicted. "Look, I'm trying to understand your choices, Harry. But getting mixed up with families like the Greengrasses, it's complicated." "Why? Because they're Slytherins? Or because they're not aligned with Dumbledore? Because they play both sides. During the war, they didn't fight you-know-who, but they didn't openly support him either. That kind of fence-sitting is called political neutrality," Harry finished. "And maybe they had good reasons." Ron shook his head. "My dad says in times of war, not choosing a side is the same as supporting the wrong one." "And Daphne's father says choosing sides limits options," Harry countered. "Maybe both perspectives have merit." An uncomfortable silence fell between them. "Anyway," Ron finally said, "Mum sent you something too. Here." He handed over a lumpy package, which contained a hand-knitted emerald green sweater and a box of homemade fudge. "She makes us a jumper every year," Ron explained, wearing his own maroon one. "Looks like you're an honorary Weasley now." Harry ran his fingers over the soft wool, deeply touched despite the complications. "Thank her for me, will you?" Ron nodded, then hesitated. "Listen, Harry, whatever's going on with you and the Slytherins, just be careful, yeah? Not everyone has good intentions." "I know," Harry said quietly. "That applies to every house, Ron. Even Gryffindor." The Christmas feast was spectacular, with 100 fat, roast turkeys, mountains of roast and boiled potatoes, platters of fat chipolatas, tureens of buttered peas, boats of thick, rich gravy and cranberry sauce, and stacks of wizard crackers that exploded like cannons, showering the vicinity with gifts. Flaming Christmas puddings followed the turkey. Percy nearly broke his teeth on a silver sickle embedded in his slice. Harry watched Hagrid getting redder and redder in the face as he called for more wine, finally kissing Professor McGonagall on the cheek, who giggled and blushed, her top hat askew. When Harry finally left the table, he was laden with things from the crackers, including a pack of non-explodable, luminous balloons and a grow-your-own-warts kit. The white mice had disappeared, and Harry had a nasty feeling they were going to end up as Mrs. Norris's Christmas dinner. That night, as the castle slept, Harry remembered the invisibility cloak. The entire castle was open to him with such a tool. Silently, he slipped from bed, wrapped the cloak around himself, and ventured out. The library's restricted section seemed a logical destination. Without Daphne's family resources, Harry and Hermione had struggled to find comprehensive information about Nicholas Flamel. Perhaps the restricted books would reveal more. He crept past Filch and Mrs. Norris, through the library door, and under the rope separating the restricted section. The books here looked different, older, with peeling gold letters in languages Harry couldn't understand. Some had no titles at all, while others sported dark stains that looked unpleasantly like blood. Harry selected a large black and silver volume, carefully pulling it from the shelf. As he opened it, the book let out a blood-curdling shriek that echoed through the silent library. He slammed it shut, but the scream continued. Panicking, Harry stuffed the book back on the shelf and fled, passing Filch at the library entrance. Thanks to the cloak, he remained unseen, but his pounding heart threatened to give him away. Rounding a corner, he spotted Filch and Snape approaching rapidly. Harry backed into what appeared to be an empty classroom, slipping inside just as they passed. Only when he turned around did he realize this room held something extraordinary. A magnificent mirror stood in the center, as high as the ceiling, with an ornate gold frame, standing on two clawed feet. An inscription carved around the top read, Erised stra eru oit ube kafru oit anwosi. Approaching cautiously, Harry stepped before the mirror, and nearly cried out. He wasn't alone. Behind him stood a crowd of people, yet the room remained empty. Heart racing, Harry looked over his shoulder, then back at the mirror. A woman stood immediately behind his reflection, smiling and waving. She had dark red hair and her eyes are just like mine, Harry thought with a jolt. Green, exactly the same shape and color. The tall, thin, black-haired man standing next to her put his arm around her. He wore glasses, and his hair stuck up at the back just like Harry's. "Mom," he whispered. "Dad?" They nodded, smiling, and Harry saw other people too, grandparents, aunts, uncles, the family he'd never known. Transfixed, Harry sank to the floor, unable to tear his gaze from the miraculous vision. He didn't know how long he sat there before a distant noise startled him back to reality. Reluctantly pulling the cloak back on, he whispered, "I'll come back," before slipping away. He returned the next night, and the next, sitting before the mirror for hours, communing silently with his family. On the third night, he found he wasn't alone. "Back again, Harry." Albus Dumbledore sat on a desk against the wall. Harry must have walked straight past him, so desperate to reach the mirror he hadn't noticed. I didn't see you, sir." "Strange how nearsighted being invisible can make you," said Dumbledore, smiling. "So you, like hundreds before you, have discovered the delights of the Mirror of Erised." "I didn't know it was called that, sir. But I expect you've realized by now what it does. It shows me my family, and it shows your friend Ron himself as head boy and Quidditch captain." "How did you know?" "I don't need a cloak to become invisible," said Dumbledore gently. "Now, can you think what the Mirror of Erised shows us all?" Harry shook his head. "Let me explain. The happiest man on earth would look into the mirror and see only himself, exactly as he is. Does that help? It shows us what we want, whatever we want." "Yes and no," said Dumbledore quietly. "It shows us nothing more or less than the deepest, most desperate desire of our hearts. You, who have never known your family, see them standing around you. Ronald Weasley, who has always been overshadowed by his brothers, sees himself standing alone, the best of all of them. Dumbledore continued, however, this mirror will give us neither knowledge nor truth. Men have wasted away before it, entranced by what they have seen, or been driven mad, not knowing if what it shows is real or even possible. He paused. The mirror will be moved to a new home tomorrow, Harry, and I ask you not to go looking for it again. If you ever do run across it, you will now be prepared. It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live, remember that. Harry nodded, but something about Dumbledore's presence felt calculated, as though he'd been expected. The ring on his finger felt suddenly warm. Sir, how did you know I'd found the mirror? Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. An old man has his ways, Harry. You've been tracking me, Harry realized. Monitoring my movements. The twinkle dimmed slightly. As headmaster, I am aware of much that happens within these walls. For student safety, of course. Of course, Harry echoed, not bothering to hide his skepticism. Just like placing me with the Dursleys was for my safety? Or keeping me ignorant of my family history? Dumbledore's expression grew serious. You've been speaking with Miss Greengrass, I see. While I admire cross-house friendships, I caution you about accepting political perspectives uncritically. Why? Harry challenged, his ring growing warmer still. Because they contradict your narrative? Because you are young, Harry, and the wizarding world is complex. Then help me understand it. Tell me why I was placed with muggles who hated magic, why no one told me about my parents' lives, why my family's ring wasn't given to me until the Greengrasses intervened. Dumbledore sighed, suddenly looking every year of his considerable age. There are reasons for all these things, Harry. Protections that exist at your aunt's home, considerations beyond politics, blood wards, Harry interrupted. Daphne explained the theory. But protection from Death Eaters doesn't justify abuse. Abuse is a strong word, they kept me in a cupboard, sir. For 10 years. Silence fell between them, heavy and charged. Dumbledore's expression flickered with something, regret. Calculation. Harry couldn't tell. I see we have much to discuss, the headmaster finally said. But perhaps another time. It's late, and you should return to your dormitory. Harry recognized the dismissal, but held his ground. Will you answer my questions then? Honestly? As honestly as I can, my boy. Some truths are not meant for young shoulders. I'd rather have difficult truths than comfortable lies, Harry replied, pulling the invisibility cloak around himself. Good night, Professor. As he left, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that a significant line had been crossed. He'd challenged Dumbledore directly, made his awareness of manipulation clear. The headmaster would adapt his approach now, but to what end? More importantly, why did Dumbledore arrange for him to find the mirror in the first place? Was it a test? A distraction from their search for information about the stone? The questions swirled in Harry's mind as he crept back to Gryffindor Tower, the weight of his family ring a comforting presence on his finger. After the holiday break, Hermione returned bursting with new research and theories. She was particularly interested in Harry's encounter with Dumbledore and the Mirror of Erised. It's obvious psychological manipulation, she declared as they huddled in their library corner. First giving you the invisibility cloak anonymously, then placing a powerful magical artifact where you'd find it, then, coincidentally, catching you there. Precisely, Daphne agreed, having returned from the Greengrass Yule gathering with new insights of her own. Classic Dumbledore strategy, appear omniscient and benevolent while controlling information flow. The question is why, Harry mused. What does he gain by showing me my parents? Emotional leverage, Daphne suggested. Reminding you what you lost to Voldemort, reinforcing which side your parents chose. Hermione nodded thoughtfully. And perhaps testing whether you'd tell anyone about the mirror. Which I did, Harry pointed out. Not exactly following his script there. That's what worries me, Daphne admitted. Dumbledore adapts when challenged. He'll change tactics now. Harry touched the Potter ring, which hadn't left his finger since Christmas. At least this gives me some protection from mental influence. About that, Daphne said, lowering her voice. Father met with the goblins while investigating your ring's whereabouts. They were concerned about activity in your accounts. Harry frowned. What activity? I've only been to my vault once. Exactly. Yet there have been regular withdrawals for years, small amounts, marked as maintenance fees for your care. My care? The Dursleys always complained about the cost of keeping me. Precisely. Someone has been drawing funds ostensibly for your upkeep, yet your relatives received nothing. Dumbledore, Hermione whispered, horrified. It must be. Not necessarily, Daphne cautioned. My father is investigating discreetly. The goblins are cooperating because unauthorized account access is a serious breach of their banking protocols. Harry's anger simmered. More manipulation, more control over his life without his knowledge. What else is he hiding? He muttered. What else don't I know about my own life? January faded into February with no further progress on either the Nicholas Flamel research or Harry's financial investigation. Quidditch training intensified as their match against Hufflepuff approached. Wood became increasingly fanatical, scheduling practices regardless of weather conditions. Then, during a particularly muddy, miserable practice session, Wood delivered troubling news. Snape's refereeing the next match, he announced grimly. Snape, chorused the team. Refereeing? But he's never done that before. Why would he start now? George demanded suspiciously. Obviously to sabotage Gryffindor's chances, Wood growled. He's not even subtle about favoring Slytherin. Or maybe he wants to watch Harry more carefully, Fred suggested. Make sure no one tampers with his broom again. Either way, we have to win, Wood insisted. If we beat Hufflepuff, we're ahead of Slytherin in the House Championship for the first time in 7 years. Harry remained silent during this exchange, his mind racing. If Snape had tried to kill him once, a Quidditch match provided another perfect opportunity. After practice, he hurried to find Hermione and Daphne, who were experimenting with color-changing charms in an empty classroom. Snape's refereeing the Hufflepuff match, he announced without preamble. Both girls looked up sharply. Don't play, Hermione advised immediately. Say you're ill, Daphne suggested. Pretend to break your leg, Hermione offered. Really break your leg, Daphne added with a hint of grim humor. I can't, Harry said, though their concern warmed him. There's no reserve seeker. If I drop out, Gryffindor can't play at all. Then we need protective measures, Daphne decided, slipping into strategic mode. Multiple spectators watching Snape specifically, ready to intervene if he tries anything. I'll bring binoculars, Hermione volunteered. And perhaps we should warn Professor McGonagall. Too risky, Daphne countered. She'd demand evidence we don't have. Besides, open suspicion would only make Snape more careful, not deter him. What about a protective charm? Hermione suggested. I read about amulets that can deflect minor hexes. In time for Saturday? Unlikely. Daphne tapped her fingers thoughtfully against the desk. A better approach would be ensuring the match ends quickly. Catch the snitch immediately, before anyone can try anything. Easier said than done, Harry pointed out. What if we created a diversion? Hermione proposed. Something to distract Snape at a critical moment. Too unpredictable, Daphne shook her head. And potentially dangerous for other spectators. As they debated options, the classroom door swung open. Neville hopped in, his legs locked together by what was clearly the leg locker curse. He must have bunny hopped all the way up from the library. Everyone burst out laughing except Hermione, who immediately performed the counter curse. Neville's legs sprang apart, and he stood shakily, rubbing his knees. What happened? Hermione asked, leading him to a chair. Malfoy, Neville mumbled. Said he needed someone to practice on. Report him. Hermione urged. Neville shook his head miserably. I don't want more trouble. You need to stand up for yourself, Neville, Harry said firmly. Malfoy's used to walking all over people, but that's no reason to lie down and make it easier for him. You don't understand, Neville choked. You don't have to live with them. I can't stand up to people like that. Bullies gain power through isolation, Daphne observed. They target those they perceive as unsupported. Exactly, Harry agreed. Which is why Neville's not alone anymore. He has us. Neville looked up in surprise. You'd stand up for me? Of course, Hermione assured him. Even against your housemates? Neville asked Daphne skeptically. Malfoy is not the entirety of Slytherin, she replied coolly. Many of us find his behavior distasteful. Bullying demonstrates lack of true cunning. Harry reached into his pocket and pulled out a chocolate frog. Here, Neville. You're worth 12 of Malfoy. The Sorting Hat put you in Gryffindor, didn't it? And where's Malfoy? In stinking Slytherin. He caught Daphne's raised eyebrow and added, no offense. Some taken, she replied dryly, but the sentiment is understood. Thanks, Harry. Neville's lips twitched in a weak smile as he unwrapped the frog. Here, you collect the cards, don't you? He handed Harry the famous wizard card as he bit into the chocolate. Harry looked at it, then gasped. I found him, he whispered. I found Flammel. I knew I'd read the name somewhere before. Listen to this. Dumbledore is particularly famous for his defeat of the dark wizard Grindelwald in 1945, for the discovery of the 12 uses of dragon's blood, and his work on alchemy with his partner, Nicholas Flamel. Hermione jumped to her feet, eyes bright with excitement. Stay here, she ordered, then dashed from the room. Minutes later, she returned with an enormous old book. I got this out of the library weeks ago for a bit of light reading, she explained, ignoring the others' incredulous looks at what constituted light in her mind. She frantically flipped pages, muttering to herself, until, here it is. Nicholas Flamel is the only known maker of the Philosopher's Stone, a legendary substance with astonishing powers. The stone transforms any metal into pure gold and produces the elixir of life, which makes the drinker immortal. So that's what Fluffy's guarding, Harry murmured. The Philosopher's Stone. No wonder Snape wants it, said Neville, who had followed their search with growing interest. Anyone would. But if Snape gets immortality and unlimited gold? Hermione trailed off, horrified. Then nothing could stop him, Harry finished grimly. Which means I definitely have to play in Saturday's match. Keep Snape busy watching me and away from the third floor. This goes beyond Quidditch now, Daphne noted. We're dealing with a potentially immortal dark wizard. Or someone else entirely, Harry reminded them. We still don't know for certain it's Snape. Either way, Hermione concluded, we need a plan to protect both you and the stone. The Quidditch stadium hummed with anticipation on Saturday. Rumors of Snape's unprecedented refereeing position had spread through the school, adding tension to an already important match. In the changing rooms, Wood pulled Harry aside while the rest of the team listened to the growing crowd. Don't want to pressure you, Potter, Wood muttered, but if we ever needed an early capture of the snitch it's now. Finish the game before Snape can favor Hufflepuff too much. The whole school's out there, Fred reported, peering through a gap in the door. Even, blimey, Dumbledore's come to watch. Harry's head snapped up. Dumbledore? He hurried to look for himself. Fred was right. The unmistakable silver beard was clearly visible among the staff seats. Relief flooded through Harry. He was safe. Snape wouldn't try anything with Dumbledore watching. As the teams marched onto the pitch, Harry spotted Hermione, Neville, and, surprisingly, Ron sitting together in the Gryffindor section. In the neutral stands, Daphne sat with Tracy Davis and Blaise Zabini, all three watching Snape intently. The match itself passed in a blur. Snape awarded Hufflepuff a penalty within the first 5 minutes when George hit a bludger at him, clearly intentionally, though George swore afterward it had been an accident. Harry circled high above the action, scanning desperately for the snitch. The sooner this ended, the better. And then, a flash of gold near the Hufflepuff goalposts. He dived, accelerating to maximum speed. The crowd gasped as he rocketed downward, Hufflepuff seeker Cedric Diggory belatedly giving chase. Snape turned his broomstick just in time to see a scarlet blur shoot past him. Harry extended his hand, almost there, and his fingers closed around the cold metal of the snitch. The stadium erupted. It had to be a record. No one could remember the snitch being caught so quickly. Gryffindor wins. Lee Jordan shouted over the tumult. Final score, Gryffindor 170, Hufflepuff 0. Harry landed, grinning as his teammates engulfed him in celebration. Over Wood's shoulder, he spotted Snape spitting bitterly on the ground, his face contorted with fury. Later, as the crowd dispersed, Harry noticed Snape heading stealthily toward the Forbidden Forest. Curiosity overcoming caution, Harry grabbed his broom and followed discreetly, flying just above the tree-line. He located Snape in a shadowy clearing, not alone as expected, but confronting a nervous-looking Professor Quirrell. "Don't know why you wanted TT to meet here of all places, Severus." "Oh, I thought we'd keep this private," Snape said, his voice icy. "Students aren't supposed to know about the Philosopher's Stone, after all." Quirrell mumbled something inaudible. "Have you found out how to get past that beast of Hagrid's yet?" But Severus, you don't want me as your enemy, Quirrell," Snape threatened, stepping toward him. I don't know what you know perfectly well what I mean. Your little bit of hocus pocus. I'm waiting." But I don't, very well, Snape cut in. "We'll have another chat soon, when you've had time to think things over and decided where your loyalties lie." He threw his cloak over his head and strode out of the clearing. Quirrell stood frozen, terrified, until Snape was gone, then slowly sank onto a fallen log, his trembling visible even from Harry's aerial vantage point. "So we were right, it is the Philosopher's Stone," Hermione exclaimed when Harry reported his findings to their group, now assembled in an abandoned classroom under privacy charms Daphne had taught them. "And Snape's trying to force Quirrell to help him steal it," Harry added. "He asked if he knew how to get past Fluffy." "Which means Fluffy isn't the only protection," Daphne reasoned. "Logical, multiple defenses from different professors. But why Quirrell?" Neville wondered. "Why not go to Dumbledore if Snape's threatening him?" "Perhaps he's scared," Hermione suggested. "Snape can be terrifying." "Or perhaps," Daphne said slowly, "Quirrell is stronger than he appears." The others looked at her questioningly. Consider, a stuttering, seemingly incompetent professor with a ridiculous turban. The perfect disguise if one wanted to avoid suspicion while attempting theft. "You think Quirrell's the real threat?" Harry asked skeptically. "But he's terrified of everything. His classroom smells of garlic because he's afraid a Romanian vampire is coming after him." "Fear can be feigned," Daphne countered. "And consider the timing. Quirrell took a year's sabbatical immediately before returning as defense professor. Where did he go? What changed him from the competent Muggle studies teacher he reportedly was before?" "You've been investigating him," Hermione realized. "I asked Father to inquire discreetly. Quirrell allegedly traveled to Albania, returning fundamentally altered in demeanor and magical approach." "Albania?" Harry repeated. "Isn't that where rumor says Voldemort's spirit fled after his body was destroyed?" A heavy silence fell over the group. "You can't possibly suggest." Hermione began, then trailed off, horrified. "I suggest nothing definitive," Daphne clarified. "Merely that we consider all possibilities. Perhaps Snape suspects Quirrell and is trying to prevent theft, not facilitate it." "That would explain why he refereed the Quidditch match," Neville said thoughtfully. "To watch Quirrell, not hex Harry." "But then who jinxed my broom during the first match?" Harry asked. Both were in the stands, Hermione recalled. Both maintaining eye contact. We need more information, Daphne concluded. And we should watch both professors closely. But the stone is still safe for now, Harry noted. As long as Quirrell stands up to Snape, and no one figures out how to get past Fluffy. A three-headed dog. Neville mused. I wonder how Hagrid even handles such a creature. They all exchanged sudden, knowing looks. Hagrid, they exclaimed simultaneously. Their visit to Hagrid's hut the following day proved more enlightening than expected. The gamekeeper was acting suspiciously, with all the windows closed despite the warm weather and a blazing fire in the grate. So ya wanted to ask me something? He prompted as they settled around his massive wooden table. Yes, said Harry, deciding directness was best. We were wondering if you could tell us what's guarding the Philosopher's Stone apart from Fluffy. Hagrid frowned. Oh, course I can't. Number 1, I don't know myself. Number 2, ya know too much already, so I wouldn't tell ya if I could. That stone's here for a good reason. It was almost stolen out of Gringotts, I suppose Yevi worked that out and all. Beats me how ya even know Abu Fluffy. Oh, come on, Hagrid, Hermione wheedled, employing flattery. You might not want to tell us, but you do know. You know everything that goes on round here. We only wondered who had done the guarding, really. We wondered who Dumbledore had trusted enough to help him, apart from you. Hagrid's chest swelled at these words, and the 4 students exchanged triumphant glances. Well, I don't suppose it could hurt to tell ya that, let's see, he borrowed Fluffy from me, then some the teachers did enchantments. Professor Sprout, Professor Flitwick, Professor McGonagall, he ticked them off on his fingers, Professor Quirrell, and Dumbledore himself did something, oh, course. Hang on, I've forgotten someone. Oh yeah, Professor Snape. Snape? Harry confirmed, unsurprised but troubled. Yeah, you're not still on Abu that, are ya? Look, Snape helped protect the stone, he's not about to steal it. You're the only one who knows how to get past Fluffy, aren't you, Hagrid? Harry asked anxiously. Not a soul knows except me and Dumbledore, Hagrid declared proudly. That's something, Harry muttered to the others. Hagrid, can we open a window? I'm boiling. Can't, Harry, sorry, Hagrid replied, glancing at the fire. Hagrid, what's that? Harry pointed at a massive black egg sitting in the heart of the flames. Ah, said Hagrid, fiddling nervously with his beard. That's, Where did you get it, Hagrid? Daphne asked, studying the egg with academic interest. Dragon eggs are Class A non-tradable materials. The penalties for possession are significant. Won it, Hagrid admitted. Last night. I was down in the village having a few drinks and got into a game o' cards with a stranger. Think he was quite glad to get rid of it, to be honest. But what are you going to do with it when it hatches? Hermione worried. Well, I've been doing some readin', said Hagrid, pulling a large book from under his pillow. Got this out of the library, Dragon Breeding for Pleasure and Profit, it's a bit out of date, oh, course, but it's all in here. He proceeded to explain his plan to raise a Norwegian ridgeback dragon in his wooden hut. The 4 students exchanged alarmed glances. Hagrid, you live in a wooden house, Hermione reminded him, but he wasn't listening, humming merrily as he stoked the fire. Outside the hut, they expressed their concerns more openly. This is disastrous, Daphne stated. Dragon breeding carries minimum sentences of 5 years in Azkaban. He's always wanted a dragon, Harry sighed. Told me the first day we met. But it's illegal. Hermione fretted. And dangerous. And potentially useful, Neville said unexpectedly. Everyone stared at him. Well, think about it, everyone will be watching the dragon situation, including any professor trying to steal the stone. A diversion, Daphne nodded approvingly. Though an extremely hazardous one. We can't let Hagrid go to prison, Harry decided. But Neville's right, this could work to our advantage while we figure out what to do. The dragon, which Hagrid named Norbert, hatched the following week. Despite initial cuteness, the creature grew at an alarming rate, becoming the size of a large dog within 3 weeks. Its appetite proved voracious, consuming dead rats by the crate, and its fiery sneezes threatened to ignite the hut daily. As predicted, the dragon consumed much of their attention, but they maintained vigilance regarding the stone. Quirrell appeared increasingly thin and nervous, while Snape continued his intimidating behavior. The third-floor corridor remained locked and guarded by Fluffy, whose muffled growls could occasionally be heard through the door. Hagrid has to get rid of it, Hermione declared one evening as they trudged back from the hut, singed and exhausted from helping feed Norbert. It's tripled in size in just 3 weeks. But where would it go? Harry wondered. Can't exactly release a dragon into the wild near Hogwarts. Romania, Daphne suggested. They have dragon reserves there. Complex paperwork, but possible. Charlie. Harry exclaimed suddenly. Ron's brother Charlie works with dragons in Romania. Maybe he could help. After some debate, they decided to approach Ron, despite their strained relationship. To their surprise, he agreed immediately. Anything to get that monster away from the school, Ron declared. I'll write to Charlie tonight. Charlie's response arrived several days later, agreeing to take Norbert, but with a logistical challenge. His friends would collect the dragon, but only if they could get it to the top of the astronomy tower at midnight on Saturday. The invisibility cloak should cover 2 of us and Norbert, Harry calculated. But who goes? I will, Daphne volunteered. When the others looked surprised, she added, I'm least likely to receive severe punishment if caught. Slytherin's head of house is more lenient with his students. I'll go too, Harry decided. It's my cloak, and I've got the most experience using it. The plan set, they spent the week preparing. Daphne brewed a mild sedative potion for Norbert, while Harry practiced levitation charms capable of lifting the dragon's crate. Hermione researched dragon transportation regulations, and Neville, surprisingly, created a fireproof carrying crate from modified plant material. Saturday night arrived with clear skies and a nearly full moon, beautiful for astronomy, but less than ideal for stealth operations. At 11:30, Harry and Daphne arrived at Hagrid's hut, where the gamekeeper tearfully bid Norbert farewell. He's got lots o' rats and some brandy fare the journey, Hagrid sniffled. And I've packed his teddy bear in case he gets lonely. A ripping sound from inside the crate suggested Norbert was expressing his appreciation for the teddy in his own way. Goodbye, Norbert. Hagrid sobbed as Harry and Daphne covered themselves and the crate with the invisibility cloak. Mummy will never forget you. The journey through the castle proved arduous. Despite the sedative, Norbert weighed a ton, and the astronomy tower required navigating 7 flights of stairs. Next corner's clear, Harry whispered, checking the Marauder's map, another unexpected gift from the Weasley twins, who'd presented it to him after hearing about the dragon extraction plan. This map is extraordinary, Daphne remarked as they paused to rest. The magic required to create it. Less admiring, more walking, Harry urged. Charlie's friends arrive in 20 minutes. They had just reached the tower staircase when the map showed a distressing development. Filch was patrolling the floor below, heading their way. Side passage, Daphne directed, guiding them into a narrow corridor. Wait until he passes. They pressed against the wall, barely breathing as Filch shuffled by, Mrs. Norris prowling at his heels. The cat paused, sniffing the air suspiciously, but eventually followed her master past their hiding place. That was close, Harry sighed once they were safely climbing the tower stairs. Why does that cat always seem to sense the cloak? Animals perceive magic differently, Daphne explained. She's probably detecting our magical signatures, not seeing through the invisibility directly. They reached the astronomy tower with minutes to spare. Harry checked the map again, ensuring the coast was clear, then removed the cloak. Norbert thrashed in his crate, apparently overcoming the sedative. Perfect timing, Daphne observed as 4 broomsticks descended from the darkness. Charlie's friends, cheerful, weather-beaten wizards, rigged a clever harness between their brooms for Norbert's crate. After a quick exchange of pleasantries and paperwork, which Daphne handled with surprising bureaucratic efficiency, they were gone, taking Norbert with them. Harry and Daphne leaned on the battlements, watching until the silhouettes vanished into the night sky. "We did it," Harry sighed with relief. "Indeed." Daphne allowed herself a small but genuine smile. "Our first successful covert operation." "First of many, knowing our luck," Harry joked, then sobered. "Thanks for coming tonight. I couldn't have managed alone." "What are allies for?" Daphne replied, though her tone suggested the word no longer adequately described their relationship. They descended the tower stairs in companionable silence, Harry checking the map periodically. As they reached the bottom, however, he froze. "What is it?" Daphne whispered, sensing his alarm. Harry pointed wordlessly at the map. A dot labeled Severus Snape was moving rapidly toward a stationary dot marked Quirinus Quirrell, in an abandoned classroom 1 floor below them. "We need to hear what they're saying," Harry decided instantly. Daphne nodded, and they hurried downward, still concealed by the cloak. As they approached the classroom, Quirrell's terrified voice became audible. "Severus, please, you know what I want, Quirrell," Snape's cold voice cut in. "Have you decided where your loyalties lie?" "I don't understand why, don't play games. The stone will be taken, one way or another. Your pitiful protections won't stop a determined wizard." "And my protection is sound," Quirrell stammered. "Most CC couldn't solve it." "Perhaps. But I suspect you already have the solution," Snape hissed. "Just as I suspect your affliction is more than it appears." "I don't know what you mean, the turban, Quirrell. What does it hide?" A tense silence followed. "That's enough for tonight," Snape finally said. "Remember, I'm watching you." Footsteps approached the door. Harry and Daphne pressed themselves against the wall as Snape emerged, his black robes billowing behind him as he strode away. Moments later, Quirrell followed, pale and shaking, his hands nervously adjusting his turban. "Did you hear that?" Harry whispered once both professors were gone. Snape asked about Quirrell's turban. "Confirming my suspicions," Daphne murmured. "Something's concealed beneath it, something significant enough that Snape specifically questioned it." "But what could he possibly be hiding under a turban?" "I don't know," Daphne admitted. "But I intend to find out." They resumed their journey back to their respective dormitories, separating at the grand staircase with plans to meet the following day. Neither noticed the cat watching them from the shadows, nor the caretaker who followed silently behind his feline companion, a malicious smile spreading across his face. Morning brought disastrous news. Harry and Daphne had been spotted returning from the astronomy tower, not by Filch as they feared, but by a prefect patrol. Though the invisibility cloak had protected them from identification, Dumbledore ordered an investigation into nighttime trespassing. "He knows it was us," Harry told Hermione and Neville over breakfast. "The timing's too perfect, right after we shipped off Norbert." "But there's no evidence linking you to the dragon," Hermione reassured him. "And you weren't caught directly." "It's still troubling," Neville observed, having grown more confident through his involvement in their adventures. "Someone must have tipped off the prefects about activity in the tower." "But who knew about our plan?" Harry wondered. "Just us 4, Hagrid, and Ron." Their speculation ended abruptly as a school owl delivered a sealed note to Harry. The message inside was brief: "Your presence is required this evening at 8 p.m. for detention in the entrance hall. Violation, unauthorized nighttime activity." "Prof. M. McGonagall, so much for not being caught," Harry sighed. "Detention isn't so bad," Neville offered consolingly. "At least you're not expelled." Similar notes reached other students throughout breakfast. To Harry's surprise, Ron received one, as did Daphne at the Slytherin table. "What did I do?" Ron exclaimed, showing Harry his note. "I wasn't even out last night." "Strange," Harry agreed, puzzled. "Why would you get detention?" The answer came that evening when they assembled in the entrance hall. Professor McGonagall awaited them with Filch, who looked delighted at the prospect of supervising punishment. "You have all violated school. Something went wrong with this response, please try again. Start the next chapter without delay." The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.